What is up, everybody? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Another Sunday rehab, making another video. And what did I tell you, dude? What did I tell you? Like, one of my first videos, right? Or, like, topics was that Muslims, they're hiding their, like, closeted ways. And I say, a lot. I don't give a fuck. Uh, they come over to, like, European countries, a lot of them just trying to, like, leech off of welfare and shit, right? But they just got caught recently. I was just like watching this news like thing about it. So they come into these migrant hotels, which are actually pretty fancy hotels. I think they're like 4 or 5 star accommodations. So that's why like the local population is pissed because they're getting put up, like their homeless population, whatever, is getting put up in these shelters, which are like total garbage, right? In comparison to these hotels, which are just like what the fuck, right? Like they're just so much significantly better because they're privately owned. That's why. But most of the reason why is because they were meant for people who not only were like tourists or like whatever, like they had that kind of money to spend, but like in the age of antiquity, like when the European Union was like serving its purpose as like uniting all the European countries and just like having that cultural enrichment, if you will, before like the Muslims, people from Pakistan, coming in and enriching them. So they come into this hotel that's put up for these guys, right? And they're filming a porn. I kid you not, they're filming pornography. Now, mostly, I would like write this off as like whatever, right? Like, do what you got to do. But there's so many holes in this story. So anybody who knows like the migrant crisis knows that percentage wise, like girls do not make like whatever, right? Like they don't. They're not even like a single point percentage on most of these boats. Like they're a point one or like 0.5. Like it's just not enough. Like there's just so many guys, swarming guys. So the people the authorities that caught these migrants, they're filming a OnlyFans sex film. Yeah, it's like basically what the kids do for like fast cash. Like you just like you can like speed run making pornography. You can go through all the bullshit without any of like the limitations of having like a porn director or any of this shit or like all these greasy ass motherfuckers and stuff. And like having to do some stupid ass regulations and shit, right? Now that being said, so these migrants, illegal migrants, they come in, they're filming this fucking porn, right? And the way that they're describing it to me is so strange, right? They want to imply that this is a male and a female. So I'm like, yeah, I'm already skeptical about that as is, right? But okay, I'll go along with it. And then, like, the host, I got this news segment off GB News. The host noted that they were using, like, all these sex toys. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, think about that for a second. You could look at this from 2 points of angles. Like, number one, the guy's got, like, some kind of weird penis fetish, erectile dysfunction, whatever, right? And he has those, or his girl has those, you know what I mean? But why, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see Muslim girls as the most sexually active women there are out there. You know what I mean? Like, if a girl who is from the Islamic faith, from a hyper conservative country, and then they're found out to have been, with the activities of like these less than desirable within their faith individuals, right? Then they actively shun them. Like there has been multiple reports on like uh, Muslims making like threats on Mia Khalifa's life. It's well documented. That's probably why she does the whole preaching to the choir shit, where she's trying to like, yo, put your phone sideways so I can see people and little girls getting raped and shit. What a fucking goon. And so, like, so back to the story, right? With these migrants in this hotel. So why does this man and this air quotes woman need that many sex toys? Then you scratch your chin for a little bit, and then you put your head back and you look into the sky, and it's just obvious. It's just like the light is shining on you. Mans be gay. That's no woman, dog. like think about like the idea of women in Islam, right? Like, all you need to do is wear that burqa hijab bullshit, and you pass for a woman. Like, yeah, people are like, tripping about like all this shit that's coming out from these places, like this one where there's just like this this Persian bride looks just like a man, and there's these comments that say, yeah, this wasn't the actual princess. This was this guy pretending to be her, and like, so why is his legs like silk smooth? Like it's the kind of legs that like only women would have. Going fully on rocking a mustache and everything, and it's just like, damn, son. And they're saying like, yo, mans gave their lives for this woman. So like, can you imagine how like they come to like any other country and their like noses are bleeding and shit? So like, yo, that, like you don't need sex toys to make this porn film shit unless you're using it for something else. Like last time I checked. If you if you really want to be technical, like I don't know, maybe um I'm not on my up to my pornography terminology, or like understanding of the usage of sex toys. But they say he had a tripod, um these sex toys, and like, yeah, obviously like the woman's wearing like the classical like Islamic garbs and shit, whatever, right? But it's also like it goes to question, and without saying, like, what makes you think that's a girl, right? Like, obviously GB News, they're gonna report their shit, like they're gonna report what they've gotten, but like they're not gonna question those facts because it's like they're just a news station. They're just just reporting what they're being passed, the information that's being passed to them. Now, would it have been nice? No, I don't want to. Actually, I don't want to like run up in like a fucking migrant hotel and then like be have force people like to force the cameraman to inhale all of that. Like, imagine just going down the hall and it's just like, oh my god, it smells like a fucking toilet. It smells like a fucking, you know what I mean? Because they're not using the no pussy, my guy. Like, stop. All right, they're not. Okay. And like the craziest thing about this is that this movie is out right now. They made this OnlyFans film and it's out right now. And I'm not suggesting like do you have better things to do with your time? Like, you don't have to go out there and like subject yourself to that level of torture. But like, yeah, there are gay Muslim migrant films that are out there on the OnlyFans though. So like, it's subscriber based. So I'm guessing that like it's adhering to the whole pro homosexual rainbow tribe of the LGBT ABC 123 crowd, right? Of like endless acronyms, complete self delusionment and stuff, like, and like, I'm all happy for them because like we all knew this was gonna happen. We all knew that one day the Muslims were gonna like admit to their faggoty ass gay ways and shit, and we're just gonna like bear witness to it. Man wants to like have sex with this air quotes woman, brings all these sex toys, brings a fucking tripod and shit. It's just like, oh dog, how much more pathetic can you be than that? Like, you're literally in a country, they're posting you up in a hotel room like that's super nice, that even like their homeless populations, their veterans, whoever, they can't even get into there. And yet you can't leave behind. Like, this is why they were gang raping all these children and women the entire time. Like, they're honestly homosexual, and they can't admit to it because of their religion. So they just carry out these gang rapes to cover up that fact. So it's one of those things where, as far as news is concerned, because I was constantly calling rehab room and like all these people, like, just more of the same, right? Like, yo, I'm thinking like they're playing on the wrong team, like they're way too obsessive over guys. Like, okay, so he constantly uses this guy in his or one of these guys in his like description of like male models and shit, right? And it's this guy who I think he starred in like one of these Taylor Swift music videos, and I'm just like, okay. Like, when Taylor Swift was coming up, I was like, I kind of liked her, but I never really liked her music. And then when I kind of knew what kind of person she was, like, she's not a pop idol, dude. She's, the living embodiment of female empowerment. And when I say female empowerment, it's like females trying to act like guys and pretending like they can just, sleep around, mess around, no consequences. And a lot of guys, they can do that because they're guys. There's no consequences to that. But when girls do that, it's not exactly the same. You get it like a game over. It's over for you. You're just like you're written off. You're sold. Right? Like anybody who has you after the fact has to contend with the idea that like you've just been around and stuff. And like going to these like these Muslims and shit, like these migrants like posted up in the hotels and stuff, like they very much like yeah, they gotta share their women's, and they know that after years, decades of femicide, all that like hyper control over female anatomy, autonomy, female genital mutilation, among all other things, right? And then you have like the opposite, where you have like westernized societies that embellished the OnlyFans kind of behavior, and then you reach your breaking point, and now you get homosexual Islamic OnlyFans films. I mean, it's not the first, and it's certainly not going to be the last. But the fact that, of all the things that you do when you go into a country, like get food, maybe meet family members, estranged family members, who like, were fleeing the war, the conflict. This is me saying this. This is more like wishful thinking. It's all guys, man. It's all guys. And none of them probably don't even know each other. And like a lot of them are just like fucking bastards. Like most likely, either the prisons, like they let the people out of the prisons, and then they're just around and shit, or like these are disowned children. Like there's entire generations of bastardized children who are just disowned and like tossed aside. So like, okay, you want to join a gang? You want to make a porno? Want to make a gay porno? And like, I don't get what was the point of all of your bravado the entire time? You're gonna take over the world? Nah, dog. No, you're not. Nobody's gonna do. Can you imagine a world where these guys rule? Like, no, dude, you lost. Nobody wants to. Nobody wants that. And like, even think about it. Like, let's say I'm wrong, and that turns out to be a female. Why do you need that many sex toys, dude? Stop playing. No, you don't need sex toys unless you have like a really small penis and shit. And like, while that may be true, like let's be fair here. Like this is highly homosexual behavior. Like this is you go into this place where your privacy is not insured. You're having sexual intercourse where people are making loud noises. The mattress and all that shit just like squeaking, and you got found out right by an inspection, which inevitably exposed kind of what we knew. Like I knew this that these guys they're fucked up. Like they're like there's nothing really wrong with being homosexual, right? It's just that when you have that and then you add on like sodomizing kids and gang raping women, and just like these people have a self-loathing um, outlook on life. So they don't necessarily care if they really do bad things. Like I saw this other headline of this YouTube video, and there's going to be so much more. There's going to be so much more, by the way. This isn't gonna stop anytime soon. This is only gonna like accelerate. So the headline was, the migrant man walks up to like a disabled girl, sexually assaults her, and then walks away free, like laughing and shit. Okay, sure. Like I'm not necessarily happy about that, but to pretend like it's something that was unexpected or nobody can predict it. I mean, I would consider that to be like the biggest form of fiction because we all knew that this was gonna happen, but now they just got exposed too, eh? And speaking of exposed, I don't know, man. I never knew that like my channel would get so popular. And like when I say popular, I mean people just watch it behind a VPN because they're just like, I'd be tripping too, but like I happen to be right about a lot of things. So the Russian Federation forces, they went over a new staff reshuffling. The commanding officer was killed, and the entire platoon defected. And yeah, it was like we all kind of knew, like even the Russians were like advertising about this whole meat aspect on their disposable soldiers sent to the front lines of Ukraine. So it's like it could be seen as like a means of demoralizing your enemy to say, hey, you are up against like people who don't necessarily want to fight or die, but they just don't have a choice, right? And then after you kill them, there we still have soldiers to go, right? So yeah, you could argue that that is a good tactic, but it also stands to question what happens when they defect, they mutiny, and now we're seeing the end result. Like the video doesn't show the commanding officer getting killed, but it does show the entire platoon just like walking away, and it has the cameras, like the surveillance cameras that like are analyzing them, and it's kind of cool. Well, I don't mean cool like this is serious shit, but like it just like has like a little Russian like icon around them. I don't know, like I find in like the digital age, like the nuance of just like having that identifier, like hey, this is a active combatant soldier from Russia, and then it has like the Russian icon as like the flag, right? Like the flag is just like showing over them, and they're just like walking away with their like full military garb. And like yes, obviously this could be seen as like propaganda against the Russian Federation to say that like hey, their forces are losing ground or this or that, right? You want to know why? I think that it's not the case. It's because they did it to themselves. Like they said that they're gonna send in these fodder. They said that we don't care about them. They even said, as I I commented. I'm just talking to myself. I just like said in one of my videos that like they wanted to clean house. Like communism is one of those governmental entities that thinks that a percentage of the population that can be culled to be more controlled, to be more productive, is a necessity. And in the case of Russia, I can guess two to threefold as to why this is most likely happening, and they got the wake up call. like I said, like I never knew that I would get so popular with like people watching my videos, because obviously I wasn't the first person to report on like Russia asking India for a million skilled laborers, as they would say, right? And I could only imagine the fallout that would occur. So you might have like a mixed regiment of armed forces. Like you'll have like a squad of like prisoners, a squad of soldiers, a squad of engineers, people who knew artillery, communicate, all that stuff, and they're all just like realizing that their government just sold them out, just like went full George Soros, Klaus Schwab, like just name any globalist name that you can think about and like apply it to this. And it's this sad realization that they're walking away from a life that their government promised them and obviously cannot deliver, because they're going back to a country where they're going to be most likely the minority after a while, like, and if they're not subjected to like, the whole Muslim versus Hindu war, like, they're going to just be in the crossfire. Like, these fucking assholes are going to be setting off bombs, trying to drive into each other and stuff, try to harass each other, trying to like, sexually assault each other's females and stuff. And like, you know, Russians are tough and shit, but like to see that kind of, you know, inhumane, you know, bullshit at that, like, you know, volume of people, where you'd think that out of, like, you know, a crowd of like 10, 50, 100, that somebody would know better, but that's very much not the case. And it's going to be a culture shock, and that's why I'm guessing that the soldiers, you know, they want to bail. I would agree on that notion. I'd be like, what the fuck, man? You just sold out my country to all these fucking asswives, and they have no, like, fucking, you know, manners. They have no fucking honor, dignity, nothing. They don't. We don't owe them nothing. Like, you're just gonna have our population basically replaced by, you know, low skill, low late like late wage laborers. Like, it's kind of crazy because I thought, and maybe I'm just like, you know, ignorant to it, because of all the sanctions and stuff, like the ruble wasn't actually doing so well. So why would they need that kind of incentive? But like, most likely it's because, you know, these guys, these millions of, you know, people from India, they don't really care too much how much they're missing out on versus like a living salary. They're just gonna huddle up and create de facto ghettos within the cities of Moscow and every other major city in Russia. I think one is Sochi, one is Samara, like, you know, all these places just gonna attract these like swarms, these unlimited amounts of people, and like I said, it's not gonna be 1 million. So the soldiers have in every way, shape, and form, like, you know, I support them for defecting. Like, you shouldn't have to die in a war where you're walking on landmines or getting killed by drones or forced to kill, you know, Ukrainians for, you know, whatever reason. Like, what is the actual, like, I guarantee if I ask majority of Russians, like, what is the real reason, like, you would want to shoot a Ukrainian, they'll be like, I don't want to shoot a Ukrainian. And maybe I'm just like, you know, thinking about the ones here, but like, I don't know, maybe this is a sentiment that is echoed within the armed forces in the Russian Federation, because it's like, what the hell, they're like brothers, you know, what the fuck, they're so, like, I'm not saying like they're one to one, right? There are obviously differences in the cultures and shit, but overall, like, you know, the heredity and stuff that, like, you know, whether you want to say it's communism or whatever back in the day, this or that, like, it was there. As artificial as it may be, it's still, you know, there, that, you know, these governments that are forcing these people to fight these wars for them. It's like the classic saying of wars are like old men talking and young men dying. And in the fortunate case, no, in the fortunate case actually, of Russia, the young men said fuck it, and they probably went to like a bar and shit with their homies, and, you know, went to go get a shot and shit, washed away all the fucking, you know, madness of this war. And yeah, well, I don't know, man. I guess, you know, Russia is just, you know, gonna be taken by some other entity and stuff. But that's none of my business. And, you know, have a nice day, everybody.